Hey guys, Eddie Paulantonio back here with Couch Talk. Today I'm going to get myself in trouble. We can start talking about some really controversial stuff. Today we are going to talk about racism. Now, racism is a terrible thing. It is a word that has grown substantially in the last few years, not only in the breadth of its definition, but also in its use. I remember growing up that, racism was discussed, but it was discussed far less than it is today. Today, it seems like basically every other moment you look at the news, someone is being accused of racism. Donald Trump is racist. Police are racist. Anybody who doesn't want to defund the police is racist. Anybody who doesn't believe in critical race theory is racist. Anybody who basically it's basically thrown at just about anybody on MSNBC. And I gotta say, we have gotten to the point where we have lost the concept of racism. We have lost the true definition of racism. So I'm going to tell you right now what the true definition of racism is. Racism is the belief that a race, skin color, or ethnicity is intrinsically inferior as a human being. And what I mean by that is somehow that person is less worthy or less deserving of human dignity and respect. Not inferior in an individual quality. So, for example, if I were to say, white men can't jump. I mean, you guys have seen this movie. It's a great movie. One of the best movies of all time, in my opinion. Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes, phenomenal actors, great job. But that's a stereotype. It's a prejudice. But that phrase, white men can't jump, is not racist. Because even if it were true, and I don't know if it's true. I don't know if you were to average all the abilities of all the white people in the world and see how high they can jump, and then you average all the non-white people in the world and see how high they can jump, who knows? Who knows if it would actually be a considerable difference or if it would be negligible. But even if it were true, being unable to jump as high doesn't make you less worthy of human dignity and respect. Therefore, to say something like that isn't racist. It's one of those things where we've gotten to the point where we're throwing that word around like it's a frisbee. Like literally anybody, and it's almost always used to shut down communication. It's almost always used because we don't want to rationalize our position, because we don't want to argue a point. What we want to do is just completely shut down the opposition by calling them racist. And I gotta say, 9 times out of 10, it's the Democrats calling conservative Republicans racist. Almost always. Any type of isolationist policy is racist. Any type of immigration reform policy is racist. Any kind of policy that involves making sure that the police force stays active is racist. And these are all Republican stances. Now, we'll get into some of those individual stances as we go forward. But guys, those things aren't racism. It's got nothing to do with whether or not you think a race is less worthy of dignity and respect as a human being. Recently, it's gotten to the point where we've expanded racism to mean any form of discrimination or bias based on race. And now there's a lot of tests going around, like implicit bias tests. I don't know if you've seen them. Now, I've taken a look at some of these tests, and they are terrible. I got to be honest with you. I've taken many of them, and they are horrible. Number one, it is virtually impossible to not score at least slightly biased. And I'm telling you, I've taken these tests and specifically tanked, like specifically tried to be anti-white and have still not succeeded. I've taken these tests 12 or 15 different times on multiple sites and have gotten almost always the same thing, which is slightly biased. And half the time, it's got nothing to do with the test itself. Half the time it's got more to do with hand positions on the keyboard, because you're supposed to toggle between different letters, and a lot of it is pattern recognition. So you could be sitting there doing left, right, left, right, left, right, oh, and then left wasn't the right one, and then you're in trouble. But it's not a good test. It doesn't determine whether or not someone's actually implicitly biased. But here's the thing, and Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot. From the day we are born, humans set up hierarchies. They set up structures of value based on the things that they feel, see, hear, touch. And these things, the very first person a mammal sees in life is usually the mother, and you almost always imprint on the mother. You almost always will feel more love, more comfort around your parents, around your brothers and sisters, around those that are close to you. And just so happens, almost always, those people are the same race. Just so happens, because that's basically the concept behind family, genetics, and race. And it's, if you've got a, let's say I've got a choice, right? And someone, holds a gun to my head and says, you've got a choice. You can be in a room alone with your father or some random dude in Zimbabwe you don't know. Of course I'm going to pick my father. Of course. I'm just going to be more comfortable with him. And that doesn't mean that I don't like the guy from Zimbabwe. That doesn't mean I'm racist. That doesn't mean that the guy from Zimbabwe is in any way less worthy of human dignity and respect. I still cherish him as another human being, as another brother under the Lord. But that doesn't mean that I'm still biased. I still prefer my father. I still prefer my brothers and sisters. I still prefer those that are close to me. Now, I may be one of the lucky ones because I grew up in East Durham. So it was a very diverse culture anyway. So I don't know that I feel any more comfortable around any other race anyway. But that's just me. I'm fortunate in that I was able to grow up in such a diverse neighborhood. And yet, I have seen tons of racism in my life. I've seen tons of discrimination. But we have gotten to the point where we are using this word every second, and it has got to stop. Morgan Freeman, very, very Democrat, very liberal, and he's been vocal with his politics, but he even admits the best way to stop racism is to stop talking about it. Stop worrying about it. Stop making every single thing in life about race, because it's not. Most of life in America is supposed to be a meritocracy. Now, I will freely admit that history has a long tail, and there are plenty of people in the world who have not gotten a fair shake. Hell, I'm one of them. I grew up very poor. I grew up in a one-room shack on the side of Neal Middle School. It's still there. And that thing is like 500 square feet? My parents were miserably poor. And then I moved from there to a very low-income part of Durham. And Durham is very high crime, very low income in the urban areas, especially 25 years ago, 30 years ago. Terrible place to live. And I got beat up plenty of times just because I was white. But guys, just because you are in that situation, that does not give you any entitlement to anything that anybody else doesn't have. You have to make your way in the world using good decision-making skills. You have to use, you have to make sure that, you follow good moral codes. And it's not like these codes aren't known to everyone on earth. Everyone on earth knows that you don't need to pick up a gun and rob a convenience store. Everybody on earth knows this inherently. It's part of natural law. I do not like affirmative action because I think it is inherently a racist policy. I think it is a policy that specifically discriminates against white people, often against Asian Americans as well, especially in the collegiate area. And I think that any program that discriminates based on race needs to go 100%. Now, I know this is not going to be a very popular stance. I'm pleased to entertain any comments that you guys might have to share below. I'll be happy to share my sources with you on these items, but the implicit bias test is no good. Everybody in the world would be racist if that test was the case. And if everybody in the world is racist, then it's almost not even worth saying anything about it. Let me know what you guys think. Put your comments below, and I'll catch you on the next one.